generating Bodhicitta by reflecting on the suffering of samsara. Why should we be mindful of the suffering of samsara? Reflecting on the various sufferings of samsara. In general, contemplate the bondage of samsara. In particular, reflect on the suffering of hell, the suffering of uncertainty, and the suffering of the human realm. The conclusion is that samsara is an immense aggregation of suffering. Reflecting on the bondage of samsara. For countless kalpas, I and all sentient beings have been trapped in the cycle of birth and death without ever attaining liberation. We have taken rebirth in heavens and on earth, in this world and other realms, over and over again, rising and falling in an instant. One moment we are in a heavenly realm, the next we return to the human world. After that we may fall into hell, become an animal or a hungry ghost. Since beginningless kalpas, I and all sentient beings have remained in samsara without attaining liberation. In the human realm, the heavenly realms, this world, or other realms, we come and go, taking rebirth in countless places, rising and falling in an instant. One moment we are born in a heavenly realm, the next as a human, and then we fall into hell, the hungry ghost realm, or the animal realm. This is the situation of samsara. We undergo reincarnations continuously in the higher or lower realms, without even a moment's rest. An ancient master said, "One may enter a horse's womb or a donkey's womb. One may just pass before Indra's palace, then fall into Yama's cauldron." From the perspective of time, the mind sometimes becomes a human, sometimes becomes a celestial being, sometimes perceives this, sometimes perceives that, rising and falling in an endless stream of thoughts. The moment a good or evil thought arises, one's rise or fall is determined. In this way, deluded thoughts emerge without pause. This is called samsara. This passage describes the situation of sentient beings bound by samsara. Those who are bound include all sentient beings, oneself and others. The duration of this bondage is from beginningless time until now. The nature of this bondage is constantly remaining in samsara without attaining liberation. That is, one undergoes life after death and death after life, never escaping this cycle. In other words, it is the continuation of rebirth. Chan Master Tianru said, "The Buddha came into the world solely because each of you is trapped in the deep cycle of birth and death. You don't know where you come from at birth or where you go at death. This cycle of birth and death envelops the entire earth. Since ancient times, not a single being has escaped being devoured by it." Previously, we have reflected on the suffering of samsara. Here, we just briefly read the text. Reflecting on the suffering of hell. We leave the black gate at dawn, but return at dusk. The moment we are released from the iron jail, we are immediately back again. In the morning, one has undergone all the retributions and stepped out through the black gates of hell. But in the evening, one comes back. It is like a repeat offender who, despite undergoing repeated reforms, enters and exits prison again and again. Once released, they forget all past lessons. They continue to create the causes for hell and thus face its retributions again. As we climb the mountain of knives, no skin is left unscarred. As we climb the tree of swords, our flesh is shredded to pieces. Hell beings climb the mountain of blades and fall into the cauldron of boiling oil. We may not have witnessed these scenes. If we see such scenes, renunciation will arise swiftly. In the Buddha's time, there was such a story. When Nanda first became a monk, his renunciation was weak. Later, the Buddha skillfully guided him to visit both the hells and the heavens, helping him truly understand the three kinds of suffering. That is, after experiencing the suffering of change, one has to face the suffering of suffering. As hell beings climb the tree of swords, the blades all point downward, slicing their bodies from every direction. Hot iron cannot relieve hunger. Swallowing it burns the liver and intestines. Molten copper cannot quench thirst. Drinking it scorches the flesh and bone. Beings in hell are seized by the hell guards and subjected to such torments. The guards force open the sinners' mouths with iron tongs, thrust red-hot iron balls into their mouths, and pour molten copper down their throats, making them endure this agony. Like prison wardens, the hell guards use various methods to torture the beings there. After being sawn in half, the body comes back together again. When the wind blows, one is revived. In the town of raging flames, who can bear the wails of pain? In the hot frying pan, all that is heard is the cry of suffering. In the hells, beings cry out in anguish. In the howling hell, the hell guards drive beings into the town of raging fire, where the flames engulf them, and they howl in agony. The place is engulfed in fire. In the cold hell, their skin resembles blue lotus buds. When the flesh cracks open, the wounds are like red lotus blossoms. In the cold hell, the being's flesh and blood freeze until they crack into pieces like blue lotus buds. In one night, those in hell undergo death and rebirth 10,000 times. In one morning, they endure pain equal to 100 years in the human world. In a single night in the human realm, beings in hell undergo 10,000 cycles of death and rebirth. This statement may contain some inaccuracies, possibly due to translation issues at that time. In hell, time feels excruciatingly long. For example, what is one day in the human realm may feel like decades or centuries in hell. This is similar to how one day in the heavens feels like 100 years on the earth. What we perceive as 100 years in the human realm passes as only one day for celestial beings. From the higher realms downward, time passes more and more slowly. In hell, time drags heavily. A single day on earth feels like decades in hell because one has to endure intense suffering every moment, making time seem unbearably long. Are we not overburdening the hell guards? Who heeds the king of hell's admonishment? When we suffer, we know it is suffering, but regret cannot help. Once released from hell, we forget the lessons and repeat the same actions as before. After leaving hell, beings become unrestrained as their habitual tendencies are deeply rooted. In fact, who wants to commit evil? Yet, bound by karmic habits, they are unable to control themselves. The Bodhichitta Sutra states, however, once these beings are temporarily freed from their retribution, before long they fall again into the lower realms. Indeed, the beings of Jambudvipa have ingrained evil habits. Shortly after being released, they return. This clearly shows that beings accumulate ingrained evil habits. Without proper guidance, they continuously reinforce their habits of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and lying.